Shalom and welcome to the Fan's Perspective. My name is Eliana Piepsh. I'm a former IDF combat commander and a diehard Commanders fan. And today we are 1 week away from the draft. I'm doing a what I would do mock draft. So we're going to be going through the first round of the draft. I can't believe we're a week away. This is so exciting. And I'm going to go and be the GM of 32 NFL teams. Well, actually, a little bit less than 32 NFL teams because a lot of teams have traded away their first round draft picks. And I'm only doing a first round draft. But we're going to be diving into it. This is going to not be predictive. As I said before, this is going to be what I would do. So there's going to be a lot of players who maybe are projected to go much earlier that I'm going to have later, or vice versa. And I'm going to try and be fair, so if there are any Eagles, Giants, or Cowboys fans in the audience, I am going to try to do what I think is best for your team, even though it's going to be very hard for me to do. But, alright, let's just go into it. Without further ado, this is so exciting. I love mock drafts. I know everyone does. And yeah, that's why we're here. So let's just get right into it. Here we have the PFF mock draft simulator, and let's just go enter the draft. All right, we're gonna start the draft on the clock. Vegas. I'm sorry for all the Vegas fans if there are any here because no one really dives into it. Fernando Mendoza is the best quarterback prospect in this year's NFL draft. He won the Heisman. He had an incredible season for Indiana. He played well in clutch moments. He had some highs, had some lows, but even though he had some lows, he always bounced back from them. And yeah, if you're Vegas, you need a quarterback, you go and you take your shot with Fernando Mendoza. I can speak. And yeah, Kirk Chains is his starter. Maybe he'll beat him out for the week 1 starting role. Maybe not. But yeah, Vegas, Fernando Mendoza, not too complicated. Now, for what I would do, if I'm the Jets, I'm taking Arvell Reese. I think he has an extremely high ceiling and not as low a floor as other players who are projected to be projects like he is. He, I think at worst case scenario, is a very good linebacker, maybe like a Frankie Luvu type linebacker if he can't play edge. And if he can play edge, then great, you have an edge rusher. This is a Jets team that needs talent. This helps them because if he does play edge, that is the second most important and second most valuable position on the field. So altogether, Jets, Arvell Reese, I think makes a lot of sense. Recently, the talk has been David Bailey's going to go there at 2. As a not David Bailey fan, I would love that. More players to go ahead of Washington that we don't like. But I'm not as big a fan of David Bailey. He'll be selected a little bit later in this first round. And yeah, Arvell Reese to the Jets, I think makes perfect sense. Okay. This is kind of my shocker to start us off, and that's Jeremiah Love to Arizona. I don't understand why no one is talking about this. Jeremiah Love is possibly the best prospect in this year's draft. And if you're Arizona, you don't have your quarterback, at least right now. Maybe by the end of this first round, maybe Ty Simpson, maybe not, who knows. So the thought is, who's Arizona going to take? Are they going to take a quarterback in this year's draft? Maybe are they going to wait for 2027, which is supposed to be a much, much better quarterback draft class? And if you did, and let's say you decided, yeah, Ty Simpson isn't the answer this year, we're going to go and try for a quarterback next year because, yeah, they actually have a pretty talented team. And as Vegas has shown you, if you invest in a very highly talented running back, you can still easily get the first overall pick. A talented running back is not going to necessarily convert into big-time changes in wins and losses. If you're an Arizona team, you get Jeremiah Love, the best prospect in this class, arguably, and you'll still probably be trash next year, trash enough at least to get a quarterback, and then you put quarterback X, rookie quarterback X of the 2027 draft class, in an offense with Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, Jeremiah Love. That seems pretty great. All you have to do next offseason in free agency is just invest in the offensive line. As long as he has an average, competent offensive line, you got Jeremiah Love running behind that, and you have amazing pass catchers beyond that. Now, is your defense going to be quite at the level to compete? No, but you don't need them to compete in your rookie's first year. So go and give him the foundation this year with talented players to put him in a position to succeed. And then next year, get your quarterback, drop him in it. Hopefully you're competitive. You know, you don't break him because he has an okay offensive line. He has weapons to get the ball to. And if your defense gives up too many points and you don't make the playoffs, you don't make the playoffs. Then you have another offseason to get defensive players, maybe improve the offensive line a little bit more, and then you can start being a contender. I do not understand why no one is talking about this. This seems obvious. That seems like such a better pick than taking an offensive lineman who maybe isn't worth a top 5 pick. And okay, you plugged in one hole and maybe he's good, maybe he's not, maybe he's a tackle, maybe he's a guard. Go and take Jeremiah Love. And then your quarterback will get dropped into a much, much better position instead of next offseason where, I mean, you have Tyler Algier, you have James Conner coming off an injury. It's not like they don't have running backs. But instead of that running back room and one more above average offensive lineman, you can find some average-ish offensive lineman on the free agent market. Wyatt Teller was available this year. Zeitler always seems to be available. He always signs 1-year deals. Go and sign him in for a year. trade for a tackle, sign a tackle, whatever. I think you can piece it together. I think this is like the obvious pick, and no one seems to be talking about it. So that's me. If I'm Arizona, I'm tanking. I'm taking the best player available and moving on to next year. So Jeremiah Love to the Arizona Cardinals with the third overall pick. Now, with the fourth pick with the Titans, this is what I would do. I love Ruben Bain. I'm getting Ruben Bain. I think he is the best today, the best edge prospect. I think he's better than David Bailey, obviously. And I like him a lot more than I do Arvell Reese today. Now, Arvell Reese has that ceiling, so I have him picked higher. But I think his arm length issues are blown out of proportion. Watch the tape. He's successful. He's productive and successful against tackles who have 34-inch arms, and if he indeed has sub 31 inches, which we'll see with the combine, all of their arm length seems to be kind of wacky. It's been a thing at the combine, especially last year, that players' arm length kind of shrunk for the combine, and then at the pro day, they lengthened out. So I kind of don't really trust the combine arm length, to be honest. I think he's still short. He's not going to have 33-inch arms. But is it a little more than 31? Probably. That's still an outlier, yes. But I think he's shown that he can produce even with that. And I think with his speed to power, that kind of lessens the necessity of long arms, and I think he's able to get under players and use his power, which he very clearly has. So if I'm Tennessee Titans and I'm Robert Saleh and I want to put a stamp on my team and I want a physical team, get myself Ruben Bain. He can move inside, he can move outside. Imagine him and Jeffrey Simmons on the inside. He can rush outside with Tremaine Johnson, so he can line up across him at edge. I think this is a pick for Tennessee. High position of value for Tennessee, and I love Ruben Bain. Now for the Giants, this hurts me. This hurts my soul. But, guys, it is what it is. If I was the Giants, I'd take Sonny Styles. He's the best linebacker in this class. He's, from all accounts, an incredible person. And he's exactly the linebacker who you want in the NFC East. He runs a 4-4. He's this huge, long, tall, athletic linebacker. And you can hope that he runs down Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels in this division. I think he's the perfect piece for them. His combine matched most closely Calvin Johnson Megatron, and this is a linebacker. He's 6'5", he ran a 4.4. He's just insane. I would absolutely love him for Washington at number 7. But if I'm the Giants, I'm taking him. I think he's probably the best player available, or borderline. Him and Caleb Downs I absolutely love, and that's who I'm taking here for the Giants. Okay, moving on to Cleveland. I'm going offensive line for them. If you listen to my previous episodes, I'm not a big fan of Carnell Tate. I don't think any of these receivers are worth a top 10 pick. I think they're more in the 15-ish range. Now, I understand this is a weaker draft class, so they're going to get pushed up, but I would not take any of these in the top, for sure, 6. Probably not the top 9 or 10, if I'm going to be honest. So I'm going to take an offensive lineman, and I'm going to go with offensive lineman who I think is going to be the most successful in the league, and that's Spencer Fano. Maybe he can play tackle for you. Maybe he's more of a guard. Maybe he's more of a center. But I think overall on the offensive line, it's really important to just get the 5 best players, and then you can kind of mix and match and see who belongs where. I think you can try him out at tackle this year. You're not going to be competing anyway. You're probably even going to be trying to tank for a quarterback next year, similar to Arizona. So try him out at left tackle. If he succeeds, great. If his arm length is more of an issue, then you can move him inside. You can move him to guard or to center. I think he's going to be a very, very, very good offensive lineman. And I think at this point with Cleveland, their defense is so stacked, there's no reason to take a defensive player. Love is off the board, and even if he wasn't, they just got Quishon Judkins with a second-round pick last year. I don't think any of these receivers are worth it, and I think a top-tier offensive lineman, which I think Spencer Fano can grow to be, is much more worth it than a Cardinal Tate, who I'm just not confident is ever going to be a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. Now, for Washington at 7, David Bailey's on the board, not taking a lineman. There's some corners, Mansour Delane and Jermon McCoy, Makai Lemon, Carnell Tate. I'm going Caleb Downs. It just is what it is. He's the best player on the board, especially currently. He is an absolutely incredible player. With Ohio State, he started as a freshman for Nick Saban's Alabama team. He led their team in tackles as a freshman in Bama. Craziness. He then moves over to Ohio State and captains that defense. They win a national championship 2 years ago. The defense was sculpted around Caleb Downs this past year with Arvell Reese, with Sonny Styles. It doesn't matter. This defense was tailor-made for Caleb Downs. So then Caleb Downs can affect the field as much as possible. That's how this defense was created. Caleb Downs is a special, special player. He is so smart. He is so versatile. He can play free safety. He can play strong safety, play in the box. He can play as a slot. He's a little bit smaller. He's still 6 foot. He's not a small guy. but he's not a Nico Manwari who's this absolute freak, but I still think he can play in the slot and line up against tight ends and running backs and these slot receivers if necessary. And this is exactly what Washington needs. Washington's defense for the last, I can't even remember how many years, 15 years, there's always a blown coverage and then two defenders just looking at each other with their hands in the air oh, how did that happen? So this is how you stop that from happening. In addition, both of Washington's starting safeties next year are going to be free agent. Quan Martin, who was a second-round pick, who has had some ups and downs, and Will Harris, we signed him to a 2-year deal last year, so he's going to be free agent after this year. We have Nick Cross in the building. That's great. So if you want his first year, Caleb Downs is more of a nickel, or you move Nick Ross around is more of a linebacker because he's a really, really good run defending safety. You can move it around. Quan Martin plays more slot, so it's Nick Ross and Caleb Downs more. You have a lot of versatile pieces at safety, and also you shouldn't not draft the best player available because you have 2 players or 3 players signed at a position, but 2 of them are going to be free agents next year. That's just not smart team building. Caleb Downs, I'd be sprinting this card in. I'd be on cloud 9. Now for New Orleans, they are a really good team. I really like where they're at, and they don't have that many holes in their team. It's mostly receiver for them. They also need corner, edge, interior defensive lineman. There's going to be a lot of teams here who one of their needs is interior defensive line, and I just don't think there are really many interior defensive linemen that are worth a first-round pick, and if so, it'll be way later in the draft. Like the Giants, for example, could have loved an interior defensive lineman. There just isn't anyone worth it, in my opinion. As I said before, receiver, I'm not high on. I'm going to give them a corner. This is going to surprise because I just talked about how much I love Jermon McCoy out of Tennessee, and I do absolutely love him. But he's man corner. Where Mansour Delane over here is a little bit more versatile. He can do man, he can do zone. Very intelligent player. Also, LSU to New Orleans stays in state. I'm going to go Mansour Delane out of LSU for the Saints. They need cornerback help. They lost Paulson Adebo 2 years ago. They then lost Alontae Taylor this past offseason, or a month ago, 2 months ago, however long ago that was, to the Titans. They need secondary help. And I think there are basically 2 top-tier corners. There are other really good corners, but these are the 2 elite. And I think you can find really good receivers in the late first, in the second. Maybe Chris Bell from Louisville, who was a teammate of Tyler Shuck. Maybe they get him in the second. I think there are many more options, and corner in general, I believe, is a more important position than receiver. So Mansour Delane goes to New Orleans. Now with Kansas City, receiver's a huge need for them. I know. Maybe tight end. Maybe move on from Travis Kelce, get yourself Kenyon Sadiq. There are options, but I'm just going to go offensive line. Francis Mauigoa. The times that Kansas City lost the Super Bowl, because it's Kansas City, so of course they make the Super Bowl. But the time that they lost the Super Bowl was because of offensive line deficiency. Now, they have Trey Smith, who's a very good guard. They have some pieces there. Creed Humphrey obviously is great. And at tackle, they've invested there. It just hasn't always been great. Josh Simmons, they drafted in the first round last year as their left tackle, and I think Francis Mauigoa would be an incredible right tackle for them. I think you go there. And if not, and he doesn't work at right tackle, you can move him to guard, you can move him to left guard next to Josh Simmons. I think you need to solidify that offensive line. As I said before, there's a lot of good receivers. There's depth in this class. Kansas City picks again at 30. Maybe they go for a receiver there. We'll wait and see what happens. But I think this is a very important pick. Francis Mauigoa is arguably the best offensive lineman in this draft. I think getting him at 9 is a steal. And I think this is a position that Kansas City really needs to address. Now you're Cincy. You have to go defense. You have to go defense. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. So the question is, who do you take? Do you take David Bailey, who at this point is more valuable, still a little rich for me, but maybe you take him? Trey Hendrickson left. You signed Boye Mafe. Shemar Stewart is back. He was our first round pick last year. Not very productive. Do you take David Bailey? Honestly, no, I'm not going there. Maybe Thieneman, maybe McCoy. So those are basically the 2 players who I'm thinking of, because there are no linebackers that are worth it after Sonny Styles, who was picked at 5 to the Giants. No interior defensive lineman, as I stated before. So it's corner, safety, it's DB. And I'm going to surprisingly pick Dylan Thieneman, and I'll explain why. First of all, the Bengals' cornerback room isn't a dire need. They could upgrade, but it's not at a horrible position where safety is, I think, in a much worse position. Secondly, Dylan Thieneman is a very, very good player at turning the ball over. So if we look here, this is a very, very productive player. He had 5 forced incompletions this past year, 2 interceptions. He turns the ball over. And I think for a team specifically like Cincinnati, who have this amazing offense and this high-scoring offense, actually having a player who could turn the ball over and give your offense another drive, I think is extremely important. Jerron McCoy is a great player, don't get me wrong, and I think man coverage is great. It is just very hard to get turnovers when you're in man because you're not looking back at the ball, you're looking back at the receiver, and being able to make a play on a ball like that is much harder. Where if you have Thieneman, who's this kind of roaming safety, really good in coverage, and has great speed and can kind of make up for some sins on the back end, and I think can turn the ball over. I think that's a huge upside for Cincy, and for a team as high-powered offense as they are, I think that's extremely important, and that would kind of give Thieneman the edge over Jerron McCoy. But it's fine, Jerron McCoy isn't going to have to wait too long, because I'm picking him right here for Miami. Miami is not in a great place right now. They're very much tearing it down to build it back up, and I think they're just taking, honestly, the best player on the board, in my opinion, right now is Jerron McCoy. I know there's other players here, and he was ranked a little bit lower on the PFF big board, but I don't care. Jerron McCoy, as I said, is the best man cover corner in this class. He had, in my opinion, the best tape of any cornerback in his 2024 tape. He had a torn ACL. He's since come back from that. He did not participate in the Senior Bowl, where he probably could have. Combine, also where he probably could have, but then he ran at his pro day, ran a 4.3, extremely talented, fast, athletic, great change of direction. Jerron McCoy comes into a Miami team that needs cornerback help, and I think he immediately comes in as their number one cornerback, and now they can start stacking needs, filling up holes, and also corner is one of the more important positions in the NFL, and they fill a big need here. Now we have Dallas. Now this is the board, to be honest, has not fallen well for Dallas. The top two edge rushers in Arvell Reese and Bain have gone. Sonny Styles, the only linebacker worth a top 15 pick, is gone. Both corners are gone. Caleb Downs is gone. Dylan Thieneman. Both corners, both safeties. Dallas needs defense. I'm not giving them an offensive player. I can't rationalize it. They have two great receivers. They got a really good running back who they just re-signed to a 3-year deal. Dak Prescott. They've invested in the offensive line. Their offensive line is okay. Could you upgrade from Tyler Guyton at left tackle? Yeah, but I don't know if you're going to take like Monroe Freeling at this point to possibly upgrade there. Honestly, this is one of the reasons why I did not like their first round pick last year in Dallas, in Tyler Booker, because I thought there were better players on the board at that point, and I didn't think he was that game-changing a guard. I think Ioane honestly is a much better guard, and if they had addressed a different position, let's say they got Jalen Walker, or a Tyler Warren, even if they wanted to go offense, or Jahdae Barron, who I really liked, if they had addressed other positions on the field, now Ioane kind of falls to you, and that plugs a hole, but they can't draft another guard. It's just not worth it for them. So there's literally no offensive positions that I'm going to be willing to go. So because of that, I am going to go David Bailey. This is higher than I would like for him to go. I think he's more of a late teens, early 20s type of pick, but Dallas needs it. They need edge rusher. I think David Bailey would help them on the edge. Obviously, they traded Micah Parsons last year. They traded for Rashawn Gary, and you can team him up with their second-round pick, Donovan Osaraku. Now you're 3 deep. That's not bad. There has been talk in general for Dallas to possibly trade up for David Bailey, maybe to 3. It now seems to be that the Jets are kind of leaning more David Bailey, so I don't know if that would be a possibility anymore. So I think Dallas fans are probably really excited about this. I still think this is early, but this is how the board fell, and I think you need to take a player who high position of value, a high position of need, and you can't go offense. So now you're the Rams. This is such a good team. This is just a really good team for the Rams. Now, a lot of people have gone Mekhi Lemon for them, and he would be a good pick. I don't have a receiver currently taken. And for LA, you could just look at their roster and say they have Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Why would they take a receiver? And the answer is Devontae Adams is probably not coming back next year. Sean McVay's already talked about the fact that they have entertained trade talks of Devontae Adams. So I don't know if that would be a long-term relationship, him and the Rams, and assuming he's gone after this year. And then you have Puka Nacua, who obviously is amazing. He's a great player. But there has been questions off-field incidences. He checked himself, I think, into a rehab facility. So is that a player who they're going to be fully confident to give him the next highest paid receiver money, like 40, what is that, 2 million, something like that? Are they going to be fully confident in that? And maybe they are, but they probably do want a receiver to pair. So receiver is a possibility. Kenyon Sadiq, they've just pivoted to tight ends, so that would be really fun if they did that. Now, if I'm looking at their needs, I wouldn't mind, honestly, if they go Ioane. I think they could upgrade on the O-line. Edge is another position where I think they need to upgrade, but there's just Akeem Essiter does fit them in the sense that he's basically clean prospect. He's kind of hit his ceiling already. He doesn't really have much more room to develop, and he's 25 years old. So he's a little bit on the older side, but he's a really good prospect. So maybe they take him. They've Byron Young, Jared Verse to add a third edge there. Maybe they do that. But I'm kind of leaning on the offensive side. I'm debating between receiver and Ioane, to be honest. I'm going to give them a receiver. I'm going to give them Carnell Tate with this pick. I don't think Carnell Tate often goes to the Ravens. First of all, I don't think he makes it there, and people see Mekhi Lemon as more of that position. But I think you can move Puka Nacua inside. I think he's amazing inside for this year specifically, and you can have Carnell Tate on the outside on one position, Devontae Adams at the other. Also, Devontae Adams has been injured. I don't know if he's going to be able to play a full 17-game season. So I think if you have Carnell Tate on the outside, he's the number 3 option, like he was in Ohio State for the majority of his career. And I think he can really develop there. He doesn't have to be the number 1 option. And then next year, when I assume Devontae Adams is going to move on, he can then be the number 2. Hopefully nothing really more problematic comes out with Puka Nacua and they feel confident in giving him the money. And if not, then you have a receiver who you picked in the top 15 of a draft, and that can very easily be your number 1 receiver of the future. So I think Carnell Tate is the pick here. Also, just give Matthew Stafford more weapons so they can go and compete for a Super Bowl. Now we have the Baltimore Ravens. So they were probably stressing out because they really wanted Ioane. I know I would want Ioane if I was the Baltimore Ravens. Now, other options that they can get to is edge as well. I don't think there's an edge, the exception of Akeem Messidor, but are the Ravens really thinking they have like a year or 2 window? Maybe, because they've been talking about restructuring Lamar Jackson's deal to free up some money so they can kind of go more all in. They were very close to trading for Max Crosby. They kind of did, and then they didn't, and that was using this 14th overall pick was involved in that trade. So do they want to go Ioane? Do they want to go Kenyon Sadiq? They let Isaiah Likely go. They extended Mark Andrews. Is that a possibility of where they would want to go? Wide receiver is another option. There are some good receivers here. Do you take a Mekhi Lemon? Do you take maybe a Jordan Tyson even? This is a good one. I'm probably leaning pass catcher here for them. So I'm going to not go Ioane, even though I absolutely love him as a player, and I think he's really important for the Ravens, especially after they lost Tyler Linderbaum. But I'm going to go pass catcher here. I'm not going to go Jordan Tyson. He gives me too many Rashad Bateman vibes of he was supposed to be a really good route runner, and he just kind of failed out. And with his injury concerns, I think the Ravens are probably going to want a little bit of a safer player. So I'm going to go Mekhi Lemon. I think he would be great in the slot for this Baltimore team. And Zay Flowers, I think they can kind of mismatch inside, outside. Zay Flowers is more of a run after catch, extremely explosive, quick receiver, and Mekhi Lemon, I think, could kind of run in the middle of the field and take some bigger hits than maybe Zay Flowers wouldn't want to, so you kind of have a thunder and lightning combination, but in the slot, which is an interesting way of playing offense. But I think that's kind of the Ravens team. You have Derrick Henry in the back, you have Mark Andrews, who's a very good, big receiver, and I think Mekhi Lemon can add another element to that. I also think he can push the ball downfield, so that is where they're going to go with Mekhi Lemon. Now, for Tampa, they could go offensive line here. They could go edge, corner. If one of the corners had fallen here, I think they would jump right all over that. Kenyon Sadiq, maybe Ioane, maybe Messidor. They have some options here, and I'm going to give them the position of highest value, which I think is edge. I'm going to go with Akeem Messidor here. There's no corners available that are really worth it. Ioane is great, but their offensive line is pretty good, and I think they need to fill more holes and not just upgrade a position that is okay to great. They need to upgrade positions that are lacking to be okay. This is a Tampa Bay team that a lot of people kind of take them as like dark horse NFC Championship type team. And things kind of fell apart with a lot of their injuries. Mike Evans going down. Baker Mayfield had a great start to the season, and then it started coming apart. Bucky Irving was injured for the majority of the season. So this is a team that could bounce back. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of feel like they're just a season away. Todd Bowles is coaching for his job right now. And I think Akeem Messidor, as I said, is one of the more NFL-ready prospects. I think he can come in day one and really produce. So I think this is going to be a player who Todd Bowles is really going to like. And if I'm Tampa, I need to upgrade on that edge. They have Yaya Diaby, Elijah Cansey on the inside. They need some more juice on the pass rush. And this is a division that's very winnable. Carolina won it, like, just barely, and it was back and forth and under 500. So I think this is a division that you can really see yourself in a season turning it around, being able to make the playoffs. I think this is a player who can really help Tampa Bay in the now. So I'm going to go with Akeem Messidor for them. Now, you're the Jets, and you selected over here Arvel Reese with the second overall pick. So, who are they going to go with now? Their needs, obviously, are quarterback, but they're not getting a quarterback at this point in time. They could go for receiver. They could go for edge, corner. There's a lot of options here because they traded away Sauce Gardner. And I'm going to go with receiver. I'm going to go Jordan Tyson. He's the last of the big three that are available. I think he could be a really good number two, really good complement to Garrett Wilson. He is a very good route runner. He's explosive. He is a pretty good blocker. He's a fine blocker, and I think he can really complement this team. Also, with his injury history, having Garrett Wilson being there so he can be the number two, so your whole offense doesn't just collapse if he's injured. So I think he's a really good complement to that team. You now have Breece Hall, pretty good offensive line. You have those two receivers. I think you're now building a good foundation to put in a rookie quarterback, assuming that's where they go next offseason. All right, we have the Lions here. The Lions team, so good a couple years ago. They kind of took a hit in their depth. They're still a really good team. Edge is a need for them. Keem Essador just went. That kind of hurts. They could go with offensive line. They could go DBs. There are no more DBs that I think are worth the 17th pick, with the top two corners and safeties both being taken. They do need offensive line, and as I said, they also need edge rushers. So for edge rushers, if we were going to look at that, you have Kendrick Falk, who's this really high upside, raw player. Cassius Howell, his short arms scare me. Ruben Bain, how he plays, it doesn't scare me as much. Cassius Howell does. There's some edges here who I absolutely love. Zion Young, Gabe Yakis, those are my two guys who I love. TJ Parker's a good player. And that's a good question for there. Do they want to go offensive line? Monroe Freeling is a left tackle. There's talk about Penei Sewell moving to the left side, so I don't know how much sense that would make. Honestly, Ioane dropping this far is probably really enticing for the Lions. Blake Miller, everyone is talking about Caden Proctor going to the Lions. I personally am not as big a fan of Caden Proctor. I think he's more of a question. I probably would take him in the first round because tackles are so valuable, and he is all the tools to become a good offensive lineman, maybe tackle, maybe guard, but I think 17 is too high. I'm going to go Maxi Anachar. I love this player. I talked about him a couple episodes ago. He's young, he's new to football, and he just has all the tools, all the athleticism to really be productive and be a really good player in the NFL. I think you have him on one side of Penei Sewell. He learns from Penei Sewell how to be a pro. You move Penei on the left because he was a right tackle in college in Maxi Anachar. I think this is a great pick. And with a quarterback like Jared Goff, who isn't as mobile, really investing in the offensive line and having Jahmyr Gibbs back there, the offensive line is really the key. It's the key to all NFL teams, but specifically the Lions, I think it's really, really important for them to get that right. All right, with Minnesota, I don't love how the board has fallen for them so far. Their big needs are tight ends, so there was Kenyon Sadiq, and it's interior defensive line, which there's just no one worth it at this point, and secondary players, which also there are no players at this point. So they could get to Ioane, they could invest in the offensive line. I like Emmanuel McNeil Warren. He's like the only really secondary player who I would take at this point. I do like Avion Terrell, but not at this. Maybe Omar Cooper? Ooh. It doesn't seem like they're going to be keeping Jordan Addison, really. And obviously, Justin Jefferson's great. And you want to create a good offensive structure for either Kyler Murray or maybe J.J. McCarthy if he can really bounce back. If you go three receiver deep and then you let Jordan Addison kind of leave next year, I think you just have a replacement already in-house, and he can be the number 3 right now, and then you can move on to be the number 2. I've talked myself into it. All right, we're going Omar Cooper Jr. I really like him as a player. I think he's a really good receiver, and this is a Vikings team that really needs to help out their quarterback. Even though Kevin O'Connell's such a great offensive mind, their quarterback play has not been good. Last year, 2 years ago, it was great with Sam Darnold. I honestly really agreed with the move of moving on from Sam Darnold. I thought we got the ceiling of Sam Darnold and that it wasn't enough. I underrated him, I underestimated him, and he was able to take it to another level and didn't let that was really bad last couple of games derail him and possibly his career. He was able to step beyond that and win a Super Bowl, so good job for him to be able to really push beyond that. But yeah, for this Vikings team, you want to either you make sure that Kyler's the guy in the new quarterback who has a up and down first stint and he moves around and then is able to really take his game to another level. So maybe that's Kyler Murray, and if it isn't Kyler, you want to make sure that J.J. McCarthy is the man. So you have Omar Cooper, and I think he really lets that team go up another level. Now, this actually goes perfectly for Carolina because they absolutely need tight end, and Kenyon Sadiq is here, and I think you just run that draft card in. This Carolina team is low-key really good. They don't really have major holes. The injury to their left tackle is killer. That one really hurts them. But it's a 1 year thing. Like, do you draft a tackle just to kind of help out this year? I personally wouldn't. So Kenyon Sadiq fills a need. They've been looking for a tight end basically since Greg Olsen left and retired. So this is exactly what they need, an explosive player. They would not have been comfortable drafting a receiver for the third year in a row. They got Xavier Leggett in 2024, Ted McMillan, who's been incredible in 2025. I would not have been comfortable drafting another receiver. So yes, Kenyon Sadiq is more of an offensive weapon. He's a pass catcher, but I think he can give a little something in the run game, and he's a very explosive player and exactly who Carolina needs at pick number 19. So now you're Dallas at pick 20. Ioane still here. I really have to get him off the board. This is ludicrous. As I talked about before with Dallas, I cannot pick another offensive guard here. It's just not acceptable. CJ Allen, who just ran like a 4.4 40 at his pro day. There was a lot of questions about his athleticism, so I think that's really important for him. He just has been so underrated this whole draft process. Early in the draft process, this is a first round lock. He's really good run defender. He's the green dot in Georgia, which is one of the premier programs in the college football arena. And he's great. And then he just didn't work out at the combine. And then you had Sonny Styles run this absolutely insane 40-yard dash. And, I'm sorry, CJ Allen ran a very similar 40-yard dash, apparently, because Sonny ran a 4.46, and I think CJ Allen was timed in the 4.4s, below 4.5. So, very similar 40-yard dashes. He's not quite the behemoth that Sonny Styles is. When I look at, he's 6'1", 235, where Sonny Styles is 6'5", I want to say. Is he 230? He is... Sorry about that. 6'5", 243. Okay, so he's 4 inches taller, 10 pounds heavier. But CJ Allen, this is exactly what he needed to do. Maybe I could talk myself into giving him to Dallas. Dallas absolutely needs inside linebacker help. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is here, and I really like him at safety. But I think I talked myself into CJ Allen. There's no edges here worth it for Dallas, and they anyway got David Bailey. And they don't need to double dip at edge. Secondary isn't such a huge need for Dallas. Trayvon Diggs was cut because he was not playing well, but they got Siobhan Ravel last year. Deron Bland is there. They signed Kobe Durant, I want to say, from LA. So I think they're honestly pretty good at secondary. They could add another player because injuries happen and there's not really much depth behind those three. But yeah, I talked myself into CJ Allen. They need inside linebacking help, and that 40-yard dash is really going to help him. He's a really good, especially run defender, which Dallas needs. Dallas is now pretty strong up the middle. Their defensive tackles are really good with Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark, who they got in a trade from the Micah Parsons trade. So they're actually pretty good up the middle. Traded away Adigizua to San Francisco, and that's still not really a big haul. So honestly, up the middle, maybe not safety, still isn't great, but it's okay. It's good enough. They signed Jalen Thompson from Arizona, I want to say. So CJ Allen, I think CJ Allen, David Bailey. If you're Dallas, you're probably really happy, which means what did I do? What did I do? What have I done? I'm Anakin. I've become the very thing I swore to destroy. It is what it is. All right, this is it. It's gone too far. Pittsburgh is getting Ioane. That's it. It's happening. I don't understand how he fell to 21. Guys, my bad. I kept wanting to take him, and I kept talking myself out of it, and no, this is it. Pittsburgh needs offensive line help. If Aaron Rodgers comes back, then they especially need offensive line help. The man cannot move anymore. They have good enough receivers. They got DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman. Running backs are solid. Defensively, they're just older, but they are good. TJ Watt, is he getting past his prime? Maybe. Jalen Ramsey's obviously past his prime. They got Jamel Dean. They have players just kind of more on the older side, and I would love to upgrade there, but I want it. We cannot be passing over him at this point in the draft. That's too much. That's too far. It's not happening. Now, we're up to the Chargers, and they're probably heartbroken. I decided I wasn't going to do trades in this draft because that should be way too complicated. But if I hadn't, 100% the Chargers would be thinking of moving up. Maybe Houston would have been thinking about moving all the way up. Cleveland, every team here basically could use Ioane. Chicago, every team would have loved Ioane. But I decided not to do that. So for the Chargers, interior offensive line is a big need. Sorry. Unless you want to reach on Pregnon. I don't think there's anyone worth it here. Do you go with Caden Proctor? Move him on the inside? Possibly. They don't need tackles. Their two tackles are great. They both got injured last year. That's bad luck. You don't draft another first-round tackle to be your third tackle, swing tackle in case of emergency. That's just not how you build an NFL team. Corner, Avion Terrell. Maybe they go Cisse. I really like Cisse. I don't know. Options. There's options there at corner. Edge rusher. I am liking Kendrick Falk because Khalil Mack is re-signed to another one-year deal. And he has done that the last few years. But how long is he going to be doing that for? He's getting older. He's a really good run defender. Do you just take Kendrick Falk and be like, dude, you're going to be tailing Khalil Mack for the next year. You're just going to be doing everything he does, learn to be a pro, and hopefully he can develop a pass rush set. Yeah, I think I'm going to go Kendrick Falk. Maybe go... Nope, I talked myself out of it. I saw Gabe Yakus, and I'm going Gabe Yakus. I'm sorry, guys. Gabe Yakus. 22, not too early. Had a 1.59 10-yard split. That's explosive as heck. He is a big, strong, stout edge rusher, 6'3", 270, who ran a 1.59 10-yard split. That's what you want. Gabe Yakus, guys. Like, look into him. Look into him. He's a complete edge rusher. You put him on the opposite side of Khalil Mack. Now, those are two stout edge rushers against the run. Gabe Yakus, I think, can give you pass rush upside. He's a day one starter. This is a Chargers team that is competitive. They have Justin Herbert. They have a good enough receiving room. They have Mike McDaniel to be their offensive coordinator. This is a team that needs to win now, and I think Gabe Yakus really helps them out. Kendrick Falk maybe has a higher ceiling to the future, but is he going to reach that? I don't know. Gabe Yakus all the way. Absolutely love that pick. Okay, we're Philly. We are Philly. Do we get Monroe Freeling? Because this is just Philly, and they're just... the rich get richer. Do they just take him and stash him? And the moment Lane Johnson retires, boop, our new right tackle of the future. Maybe. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, he could switch out Reed Blankenship. Kendrick Falk, they need edge rusher. Secondary, they're fine. They're fine at corner. Blake Miller's only a tackle. Caden Proctor. Oh, I could just see them taking Caden Proctor and then him becoming an all-pro with them. All right, I'm going to look at edge for Philly. I'm going to go tackle and interior. I'm going both. That's kind of it. They're just such a complete team. They could go receiver, but I took the 4 big ones off the board. Who's the next receiver? Yeah, Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion. I'm not taking them at 23. I think this is a little rich for them. Guys, I apologize. This probably isn't great TV/podcasting. But Kendrick Falk, do you develop him as a pass rusher or Caden Proctor? Ooh, I'm going Caden Proctor. I think he can play interior right now. Maybe you teach him to be the right tackle of the future. Their offensive line coach is just so good. He makes everyone amazing who's there. He has all the tools. This is just classic Philly. They get this player with all these tools. They've one of the best, if not the best, offensive line coach in the NFL, and they make him a perennial Pro Bowler. It's just, I can't. All right, we are Cleveland. We're probably pretty sad, if I'm going to be honest, because we took Spencer Fano, I want to say. Yeah, with the 6th pick. Monroe Freeling's here. You probably would have rather taken a receiver with that first pick, and then Monroe Freeling here. Not going to lie, my bad, Cleveland, but that's just how the draft falls every now and then. They need receiver. Guys, it is what it is. You get Boston. Oh, I love Chris Bell. 24 might be a little rich, though, but I absolutely love Chris Bell. Denzel Boston. Casey, I think I'm going Denzel Boston. He's just a big X. Can go up and get it. Ran a solid 40. He can be your number 1. He can be your X. Give whoever's back there, Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, whoever the heck, give him another receiver. Looking back on it, probably should have gone receiver at 6, but I really just don't think any of those guys are worth it. I think this is better value, Denzel Boston, Spencer Fano, than Carnell Tate and Monroe Freeling. I do. I'm sorry, guys. Just, it is what it is. All right, we have moved on to Chicago. Edge is the need. Do they go Kendrick Falk? They could take a safety as well. They lost 2 safeties in the offseason. They signed 1. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is looking really, really nice right there. And then they have offensive line, which is also a need, but not Monroe Freeling, ain't it? I think all the really good offensive linemen, especially versatile offensive linemen, have been taken off the board. So let's look at edge again. Surprise, surprise. Edge, and let's do corner and safety. Let's do DBs, you guys. Okay. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, I might go with him. Kendrick Falk again. He's enticing. Do I go like Zion Young, who I really like? Brandon Cisse, I don't know if he fits them so well. I'm gonna look Zion Young, Kendrick Falk, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. I'm gonna go Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. He's just a turnover machine, big hitter, forces a ton of fumbles. This is a Chicago team that part of the reason why they were as successful as they were last year was because of all the turnovers they forced. They have another guy who can hopefully keep that going. Variance says it's going to bounce back. They're probably not going to be one of the top turnover teams, but maybe adding a player like Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, who has such a nose for the football, can help. All right, Buffalo. Buffalo, they need receiver. They absolutely need receiver. They need corner. There's no inside linebacker. I love Jacob Rodriguez. Love him. Where is he? How is he this? Okay, there we go. There's no way he's 45. Let's be real. I love Jacob Rodriguez. I don't think he's should be ranked 45. I think he's maybe back at the first, probably early second if we're going to be honest. I don't know if I'm going to take him here. I love him, but I don't think I can do it. Do you go Kendrick Falk? This is a team that needs to win now, though. Maybe Avion Terrell. Absolutely love him. Caden McDonald. They need interior help. They were like the worst rushing defense in the league last year. I really like Caden McDonald over here. I'm going Caden McDonald. This is a team that was really good against the pass, awful against the rush, and get the best run defensing interior defensive linemen. I think this is around the range where these interior defensive linemen can go. I don't think they can really go first 20 picks for sure. Probably not till pick 25-ish. And now here they are, pick 26. I think this is around the range that they should go. So I'm going to pick 26 for the Bills, Caden McDonald. Now, Niners are on the clock at 27. They could go Monroe Freeling, Trent Williams. Is he going to stick around? There's some contract discussion there. Kendrick Falk, they need more edge help. Avion Terrell could really help them. Yeah, I'm going to go Monroe Freeling. I'm not going to overthink this too much. I think this is really the range where he should be going. He can play left tackle. He's extremely athletic, has all the skills. He started for Georgia, which is one of the better teams in college football. I don't think you have to think about this too hard. You need to be able to protect Brock Purdy. They have more than enough skill position players, especially with signing Mike Evans, so Ricky Pearsall, and they have Christian Kirk. Brandon Ayuk is still on the team. Probably not for long, but I think offensive line is probably where they need to go. Now with Houston, this is such a stacked team, guys. I just can't even. Now, would they love Laramie Tunsil? Yes, probably, but they are not going to get Laramie Tunsil. They could still use an offensive lineman. It's basically the lines, interior offensive lineman, maybe even tackle, and then interior defensive lineman. Not Blake Miller. I don't like him enough for this Houston. Ooh. Guys, I'm going Peter Woods. I picked Peter Woods. This is a player who's projected to go in the top 10 before this college football season. This was a Clemson team that was supposed to be really good, ended up not being really good, but wow. Just a penetrating defensive lineman on this Houston defense. Just imagine, you're lining up, and you have Will Anderson, you have Danielle Hunter, and then you got Peter Woods on the inside. And you're anyway in third and long, because in your secondary is Petrie and Derek Stingley, and you got Caden Bullock, and you have, I'm forgetting, Lassiter. Oh my god, you have this the greatest secondary ever, so it's gonna be third and long. And then it's third and long, you just have those three absolute beasts going to rush you. Oh my god, I love this Houston defense, and I just love it even more now with Peter Woods. Wow, I accept. I accept my own terms. Ooh la la. Now with Kansas City, they got offensive lineman Francis Mauigoa at pick number 9. They can use receiver, they can use corner, they could use edge. This is actually a team that has some holes they need to start filling. I don't like any of the receivers here. I don't like Casey Concepcion enough. Still a little early for Chris Bell for me. Colton Hood is good, but would Kansas City maybe just trust Steve Spagnuolo to be able to develop defensive backs like he's been able to do throughout basically his entire career? Because Colton Hood is available, as you can see. I really like Avion Terrell. And would they go Kendrick Falk? I don't think so. He's too much of a project, and Kansas City are still in their win now window with Patrick Mahomes. So I don't really see that happening. They don't really need offensive line. Caleb Banks is too much of a question mark in my opinion. I don't love the receivers. Zion Young? I don't know. I think they probably need more outside pass rush to pair with George Karlaftis. I think I'm going to go Avion Terrell. I think he's great. I think he can play inside and outside for them. This is the pick that they got in exchange for Trent McDuffie, so I think it works pretty well. One goes out, another one comes in. And even though Clemson as a whole had a disappointing season, and a lot of players who were projected to be picked higher or have really good seasons ended up not, Avion Terrell was one of the few who actually had a really productive season. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with Avion Terrell. This is a need for Kansas City. They fill it. They got Mauigoa, I believe, at 9. Yeah, they got Mauigoa at 9. They dressed the offense. Now they dress the defense. I'm liking it. All right, now with Miami, they have questions if we're on the field. I'm leaning Kendrick Falk because if he can develop and become a great pass rusher, this is exactly what Miami's going to need. They have Chop Robinson, but they cut Bradley Chubb. They traded Jalen Phillips, so they've already moved on from a couple of pass rushers. If he can progress and develop, I think he can be a really, really good difference-making edge rusher. He's huge. He's like 6'6", 270, 280. How big is he? 6'6", 285, okay? He's a young player. I think he's like 20 years old. He's already a good run defender, so maybe he can even get better than that. And this is a Miami team that isn't drafting players for 2026. They're drafting players for beyond. So, yeah, I'm getting Kendrick Falk here. They have corner with their first pick, does Miami, with Jermon McCoy at pick on number 11. And now they have Kendrick Falk. I think that's good. High upside. That's kind of what you need at this point in time if you are the Miami Dolphins. Now, their divisional rivals, the New England Patriots, they're a really good team. Obviously made it to the Super Bowl. I don't think there are any receivers here, and there's a good chance that they're going to trade for A.J. Brown, so maybe that's not as big a need. They did get Romeo Doubs. They got Morgan Moses on the right side. Will Campbell, for now, at the left side. He did not have a good playoff run, but he was pretty good for the rest of the year. Do they go edge? Cassius Howell, T.J. Parker, Zion Young. Let's just look at the receivers in case I'm forgetting anyone. Nah, these guys aren't. I don't think they're worth quite this pick. I think I'm going Zion Young. I love him at edge. He's big, he's strong, he's physical. 6'5", 262, exactly how you want your defensive lineman to be built. He's good against the pass. He's good against the run. He can still develop more as a pass rusher, which is why he's only getting off the board at around this point in time. But I think he's a really good player, exactly the type of player that Mike Vrabel is going to want. They let Caleb Von Chason walk in free agency. They have Harold Landry. He's more of a designated pass rush type, so they need a little bit more stout play, especially against the run. They have really good interior defensive players in Milton Williams and Christian Barmore, so they don't have to worry about that. If you add Zion Young, another piece for this defensive line, I think that is the place that you go. All right, last pick of the draft. We got the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. Love you, Hawks. Running back is a need. Cannot get it this early in the draft. That's just not it. Caleb Banks is enticing because if he works out and you put him in part of that defensive line, but I don't know. There's injury questions with him. He got injured during the season this past year, and then also in the offseason process, he apparently broke his foot at the combine. So I don't know. That's too risky. I'm not taking that with the first round pick. Colton Hood I like at secondary, but honestly, I feel like Brandon Cincy is just like the classic Seattle corner, like big, strong, fast. He's 6 foot, 190. He ran really well. He's just an uber athletic guy. He's more of an outside corner, but that's honestly what they need. Rick Woolen left in free agency. You have Job, who can play outside or inside. Devin Witherspoon, also either way, and obviously Nick Minowori. I think I'm going Brandon Cincy. He's just the most Seattle pick. All right, so that's it. That is my What Eliana Would Do mock draft. Here it is, if anyone wants to see it. We'll see what I got right, what I got wrong, but honestly, this isn't predictive. This is more a look in 3 years in the future, see whether or not I was able to identify kind of good players. Honestly, my favorite pick might be Jeremiah Love. I just don't think anyone's talking about it, and guys, like, tank and get yourself the best player on the board. Caleb Downs to the Skins, absolutely love it. I'm sick to my stomach, but I think the Cowboys got a really nice haul here with CJ Allen and David Bailey. Giants with Sonny Styles, Philly with Caden Proctor. Like, I've given all my divisional rivals really good players, okay? I don't like this at all. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I would love to know what you think. First of all, did I identify correctly the team needs for your favorite team? And if not, then let me know what I got wrong. Because I did do some research, but I would love to know, as a fan, you have a more ingrained knowledge of what your team needs are. As if someone were to talk about the Skins team needs and putting receiver as number one, I would have a problem with that. And so I would love to know your thoughts about that. I'd love to know what you like, what you didn't like. I'm going to be doing a predictive mock draft the week before the draft, so don't worry, that will be coming. I wrote it down in my notebook last year, so I'll bring it out and we'll see what I got right and wrong. I do not remember. I would know I was really high on Mike Green, and that, first of all, he was drafted in the second round. Secondly, he did not do well in his rookie season. So we'll see how predictive I was and how accurate I was. But I just want to say thank you to all of you guys for watching this. I really appreciate it. And feel free to like and subscribe if you like this content and want a little bit more. We're going to be doing things also post-draft, don't worry. But guys, 7 days from the draft, this is what it's all about. All right, well, thank you for spending the last hour with me, and I'll see you next time on The Fan's Perspective.